All right, so we're gonna get started here. Now the first thing you do, the very first thing you do is, I always wear blue gloves, rubber gloves to do this. For the scraping part, you won't need to do this. It's your choice. I just always put them on and wear them. That way it's easier to wash my hands, I feel, afterwards. Because you're gonna get rust and grime and whatever else coming off of the saw. And I just don't want it on my hands. Remove the price tag. So here I just got, it's just a Stanley, razor blade scraper. There's nothing special about this. I think it was a couple of bucks on Amazon, and then it's just got, replaceable razor blades in it. This will do the majority of the work, the hard work here at the beginning. So you just kind of pick a spot and then just go to town, and you just start scraping. I kind of hold it at a 45, and you'll see the rust start to come up off right away. This is pretty aggressive process, but it gets rid of so much stuff. And if there's glue, or this particular saw has these tar spackles on it, or dirt I've seen on some. I got one saw, I don't even know what's on it. I can't get the stuff off of there, and I've hit it with citric acid, soaked it overnight. I don't want to use any of that rust off stuff. I don't know, I'm kind of against using hard chemicals like that just because it's so hard to dispose of. But citric acid is a natural type of, I think they use it for like maintaining fruit, apples and things like that so they don't brown. You can use that. That was a Chris Schwartz recommendation, and I've done saws with that. I did my first saw using that stuff, and it worked out great. Like I said, this is the process that I've just recently learned, and it takes no time at all. And this is how the guys at Bad Axe do their vintage saws. So I just kind of follow suit, and I watched them take an old Disston, happened to be an old Disston also. Watched one of the staffs up there take a saw from basically nothing to, a nice, smooth, cleaned up blade in probably 30 minutes. Now, that particular saw wasn't as beat up as this one, but it definitely had seen better days. And man, I tell you, the way he restored that saw in no time at all, it looked great. They even sharpened it later on, and that we used that saw and cut with it in no time flat. That's the thing that I think I was the most surprised about, that this process doesn't have to be laborsome. I'm not working hard at this. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just letting the razor blade, it's a brand new razor blade, but I'm letting it do all the work. And man, I can tell you what, it's taken a bunch off. I hope that's coming up on the camera. I can see already there's tons of flaking on the dust on the top here already, and it's taken the most of that rust off. That does the majority of it, and then this Wizard's Metal Renew will do the rest. So the other thing that this is really good at is, like, you can kind of see this stuff here. Like, I don't know what this is, but here, this might have been glue. You can see how that just came off of there, flaked off here too. This looks like glue or caulking or something. Who knows what they got into with it, but I was pretty fortunate when I saw this saw, and I knew right away what it was. And I looked at it and I'm like, man, they want $3 for that. So I was stoked, and I'm really hoping that this turns out great. Now, unfortunately, I'm not seeing any emblem coming out of here, so that's kind of a bummer, but we'll see what happens. If you do get a saw and you can see the emblem, like I should be able to see the emblem through here, the etching. On this one, I think it's pretty much gone. I can just kind of see remnants of it, but there's no getting through to it. I think that's wasted. If you do have a saw and you can see the emblem, try to avoid it with the rust renew, or the metal renew, the Wizard's metal renew, because you don't want to risk taking it off. You know, that's kind of the saw's trademark right there, you know, especially the plate. I try to avoid the emblem, because once you hit it with the rust eraser, that's how you'll clean up the emblem. So it's just kind of a rough, medium, and fine process. You know, if you're used to working wood, listen to Chris Schwartz. He's got his rough, medium, and fine, and that's really what this process is. It's, you know, this razor blade is doing the rough work, and then the metal renew will kind of do the medium and go to the next level, and then the eraser will kind of be the fine part of it. And that's it for scraping, you know. If you got stuff on the handle, you can kind of scrape at it. Like this one's got a little bit of glue. I would be very gentle with doing this here, but you can do it. You know, don't go crazy. If you want, you can even remove the handle first. I'm not going to remove it here. I don't know, maybe I'll take it off. There's some grime on here, see? You gotta be careful there. If the saw is really bad, or you really want to take it off, go ahead. It all depends on the saw and how bad it is. Heck, they had a saw at Sawpalooza last year. The saw must have been 100 years old, and they took it off, and we were so surprised because generally there's rust, and it's the most rust up underneath this handle. And we took that handle off, and it was the cleanest part of the whole blade. We were floored by it. So surprised. Okay, so that's pretty much that. Now you move on to the rust renew, and this stuff will do wonders. I was amazed at how well this works, and you don't need very much. Just some little dabs here and there. You just kind of put a little bit on, because the Scotch-Brite will scrub and press it around. Now, when you do this, you definitely want to have gloves on for this process. Try not to do this without any gloves on, especially with this stuff. And you just lightly scrub away. Now, the Sawpalooza guys said that the plate's really bad. They have the different grits. I think it's green, gray, and then maroon. And I think the gray is the harsh or the roughest. And then they go to the maroon, which is what this is kind of the medium, and then the green, I think. If it's really bad. And generally those saws, when you finish, you'll probably have pitting on them. Pitting's not bad. Don't freak out if the saw plate is pitted. You know, that's not great, but it's not bad. It's all in the tension in the blade. If your saw blade still has plenty of tension in it, it'll cut, and it's straight and it has a good tooth line, and you sharpen it right, it'll cut. That pitting is, you're just trying to stop it from rusting. I've seen saws on eBay. This is also a tip for when you're looking for saws. If the plate is super shiny, I personally tend to shy away from those, because I don't know what process somebody has taken to that. Have they taken a grinder? Have they taken a belt sander to try to get rid of all the rust staining in it? And if they have, they've probably scraped away so much material and rust, because you got to get down through the pitting to remove the rust, the staining from the rust, that you're going to screw up the taper grind, right? You'll see, if you look at the tip here, you'll see an isosceles triangle. It's wider at the bottom, thinner at the top. If you scrape away on that, you screw up the taper ground, which then you screw up the saw. You need that taper ground in the blade so that the saw doesn't bind as you're cutting down through whatever your work material is. And taking a grinder or a belt sander or something to it is the best way to get rid of a taper grind. So I tend to shy away from that kind of stuff. If the blade says it's, the description says it's sharp and the blade still looks like it has, the rust staining in it, then I'll give it a consideration. I just bought a 28-inch Disston rip saw, and the guy was great. He had really good description. He knew what he was talking about. He even highlighted what the tapers were at the toe, at the heel, the bottom, the top of each, so you could see and verify that the taper is still in the blade. And then he talked about how he sharpened it, which was great. So that's it. That's one side right there. You can see it already looks way better if you can get it in the light compared to the other side. That's the other side, if you can see that, versus this. And that's, I'm not even done with it yet. I haven't even taken the eraser to it. That's just scraping, and then that renew. That renew is, man, it's like gold. It's crazy how well this stuff works. And it's not very much, and we've been here a few minutes already. That's probably too much, but that's okay. We'll get through it. It really, you'll see it just start to lift. I'm kind of wishing I took the handle off, but that's okay. We can do that later. You'll see it start to lift, and I hope the camera's picking it up. Sure it is. You'll see it starts to pick it up, the rust, right away, and I'm not pressing hard. I'm just, I'm not laboring over it. I'm talking to all of you and, working away here, and it's coming right up and off. It's great. Just a good, consistent, even pressure, and I just kind of give it a little scrub, and it kind of gets this chocolate muddy look. Look at the work that's doing coming up off of there. And then I'm just using old socks to wipe it away. You could use any type of rag. I wouldn't use paper towel, only because you could, I'm not saying you can't, but I think paper towel gets hung up on the teeth, and then it's always tearing, and then you just got a mess. That's my opinion, my experience. Plus these old socks, I go through my white socks, pretty quickly. My wife gets pissed at me every time I go out the yard or the garage or something and I got my socks on. She comes out with my shoes. Put your shoes on. Oh, she means well. She's great though. So there. That's how you clean that blade. And again, that just took me a couple minutes to scrape and wipe it down, and clean it up. I got some more gunk here, abrasions, maybe a little more scraping will clean that out, but that's okay. But you can see that's pretty well cleaned up. And then the final step we'll do here tonight is with this Sandflex hand block. This will really polish it, but it's basically a big eraser. It's a really stiff eraser, but this will this will really take stuff off, and you can see it's kind of breaking away and taking stuff off as well. And you can see it's lifting more rust off, and this will help to polish without removing any more of the taper, or any of the taper, I should say. I didn't even know these existed until last week, so that was a great find. And man, when they were done with that blade and they were done with this eraser on it, I couldn't believe how well it looked. just by running this eraser over it. And this is really doing the polishing that, you know, many people think you got to take a grinder or a belt sander to it. God, please don't do that. These are fabulous, fabulous saws. And the great Henry Disston, man, if you ever want to know a heck of a story, go find out about Henry Disston. Go read up on him. Go to the Bad Axe site and read the history about Henry Disston. Talk about a man with perseverance. Whew, he was amazing. You know, he put his heart and soul into these saws. He came over from Britain, didn't even make it to shore in the ship, and with his sister, and his father stroked and died. So they literally landed on the shores of the States, orphans. And he grew up to become the, in my opinion, one of the greatest saw manufacturers ever. His saws are still around today, as are a lot of others. But he figured it all out on his own, and he used to go into those hardware stores and he'd pick up the competition saws and he'd bend them over his knee and break them right there in front of him. Oh God, if I could go back and see him do that. And then he'd pick up his saw and show him the exact same test and show him how it would spring right back. And then he'd cut wood with it. And he'd make sales right on the spot doing that. And these saws still pass that test today. That's why you can take them and do that flex test. And they'll spring right back. That's that spring steel. So there you can see, you know, that's what you're looking for. It's polished it up a little bit more. It's not gonna look like the day it was brand new. You know, you'll never get it back to that, but that's not your goal with the saw. If these are user saws, you just want to clean them up, sharpen them, you know, get rid of the rust, and then as long as this is smooth to the touch, which is kind of hard to tell right now with the gloves on, then it's a good saw and it's good to go. That's what you're after. God, don't ever polish all this stuff down. You'll ruin the saw. These are great saws. I see them all over the place. I know several people that have these Distons. Several people brought their antique vintage saws with them to Sawapalooza last week. We cleaned them up, sharpened them, and they cut just like the day they were probably brand new. If you can find a good Disston and it passes those tests, you know, you got a good saw. You know, and this isn't a lot of work. It's actually, for me, it's kind of calming. Just sit here and watch it come back to life. It's kind of amazing. With a few simple, cheap tools, I probably got, you know, $30, $40 in materials here, if that. And the saw was $3 at a garage sale. They probably honestly didn't realize what they had on their hands. And look at that saw is polished up. I think I'll remove the handle in the next video. I'll show you how to take the handle off and then how to start to clean that up, because we'll clean that up and redo it. And then I'll probably scrape and redo the blade there too. But there's the back, all nice and cleaned up. That's ready to go. All right, let's give it the final test. Oh yeah. That's a night and day difference. That's amazing. And that wasn't a lot of effort, you know. It's hot here, humid, and I'm not really sweating, you know. That's great. So that's how you do it. That's how you clean up a saw plate. You know, there's a little bit more here to clean up on the edges and stuff, and some of this in the tooth line will come out when we file it. So yeah, in the next video I think we'll start on the handle, and then in a follow-up I'll show you how to joint and then cut or file this tooth line. I don't think it needs to be set. We should be good there. It feels like it still has a little bit of set, but I'll show you how to do that. Thanks for watching.